There we go. That way, if anybody wants to watch a copy later or share it with your team, it'll be recorded. But we'll go ahead and start. And yeah, I'll defer to my guest and good friend Shram to kick it off. Tell you a little bit more about Financial Sense, a great practice management workflow platform, and he can show you a few screens in the app, and it does a ton of stuff. So there's a lot to see, but he'll be able to show you some highlights. And then we'll kind of segue. I'll show you around Uncat a little bit, and we'll talk about how they work together. So, Shram, if you want to kick it off, and you should be able to share your screen if you have any issues, let me know.
All right, yeah, I'm excited. And like Brendan was saying, I think it's great to see how other apps work together. I think a lot of accountants in this space, they use a lot of different apps, and it's important that they work well together or they play nice together. And it's crazy. It's such a small world, like Brendan mentioned. Like we go way back. I knew him really in the infancy stages of Financial Sense and before he was doing Uncat. And now here we are together on a webinar. So I'm excited about this because Uncat and Financial Sense really do go hand in hand. You know, what we do is we help firms get work done. We help you track the status of work, collaborate with your team, and hit your deadlines. And a big part of that is the month-end close, monthly bookkeeping process, and managing those uncategorized transactions. And so we play so well together. So I'm excited to kind of show you guys how that works and a little bit about what we do. Right before I jump in, I just want to talk about why we started Financial Sense. So before we started FC, we talked to hundreds of firms, and we realized that one of the biggest challenges they had with getting work done was, one, the lack of visibility. You know, they were using spreadsheets, or everyone on the team was kind of using their own hodgepodge system, or everything was in their head, and they wouldn't know where work stood. You know, who was working on what? Did we get our work done? And it causes things to slip through the cracks. That was a big pain point for firms because then they missed deadlines. And the other thing was staying organized, right? All this information, whether it was client information, client communication in email, team communication in Slack, client info in Word documents or Excel files, was all over the place. So no one could really find the information that they needed to get their work done. So we said, let's solve this by building something like Financial Sense, which is easy to use and keeps everything happening in one place. So let me show you just a quick high level of kind of how we do that. Let me see, present, we choose a window. Okay, so I think, can you guys see my screen right now?
Yep, looks great.
Perfect. All right, so at the highest level of what Financial Sense does is the workflow, right? This is where you can track the status of client work, see who is working on what, or all your important deadlines in a single view. So as you can see here, this is what gives you that visibility. You can see all the work happening, the status of it, who's working on it, when it's due, and what client it's for. So you know where everything stands from a bird's eye view as a manager and an owner. Your team will have the same view, but it'll be just their work. So it's an actionable to-do list. So your team knows exactly what they need to do this week and next week. And you can get deeper visibility by going deeper, right? So we have these amazing filters where you can say, maybe I just want to see my monthly bookkeeping work, right? That is in review right now. Or you can search by the status, or you can search by just do maybe, you know, this week. I don't know if anything's going to show up, but yeah, so you have all these different views. Like you can filter by time period, you can filter by team member to see what each team member is working on. You can run all these reports to get that deeper visibility. So this is about visibility, right? Let's talk about the organization, the other big problem that firms are facing, because all their information is in Slack and Google Docs and Excel spreadsheets and email. We help you centralize all of that in one place so it's organized on the work where your team is actually getting the work done. So as you can see here, right, you have the first thing you see inside the work is your checklist. So your team knows exactly how they can get their work done, and which maintains work quality at scale. You also have the ability to collaborate with your team, right? You guys can have conversations, ask questions, share notes, tag people in comments to notify them. You can store files and documents here. And which is really cool with our new email integration, you can even tag emails related to the work on the work. So when your team is working, again, they have everything, right? They can see what the team members were saying to get context. They can see the documents they need to get the work done. They can even see all the emails between you and the client. So they have all that information and context. Another big part of it is not just the work-related information, but the client-related information, right? So if you, let's say you need a client's EIN number or password to one of their apps, you can click this here, and then you'll be able to see all that information on the client's profile. Here you can see meeting notes, contact information, entity info, passwords to apps, and everything securely stored, and then get back to the work. So again, Financial Sense is all about giving you guys, you and your team, visibility to know who's working on what or seeing what I need to do, but also organizing everything in one place so your team can access the information they need quickly to get their work done. Because we find that the biggest thing that holds back teams is they don't have the information that they need. So now let's talk about how Uncat plays into all of this, right? So in this monthly bookkeeping process, at some point, you're going to have to manage, the uncategorized transactions, because it's a big part of the process. So inside Financial Sense, you can actually link to Uncat. So then when you click that, it would actually, in this example, it's just a website, but like it would actually, if you have the magic link in there, it would open up Uncat, and you can start managing the uncategorized transaction process. And that's where I'll let you take it from here, Brandon, and you can talk a little bit about Uncat.
Yeah, for sure. And hopefully it goes without saying, everyone's microphone is muted, but we like to make this as interactive as possible. So if you have questions as we go, we'll do our best to get to them. Just pop them in the chat and we'll sort of scan through there. So if you've got any questions at all that come up now or as we go along about Financial Sense or about Uncat, throw those in there. One of the things I love about what Shahram and his team have built is it's very user-centric, right? So they didn't come at it like, hey, we want to build software for software's sake. It was, how do we best serve clients? How do we best serve our customers, the accountants and bookkeepers that use our platform? And so I think that comes through in the demo, right? It's a really nice, clean user interface. It's easy to navigate. You can't get too confused in there, but it's also powerful. You can see who's scheduled to do what. You can follow up with clients based on the best information. So I don't have to ask, hey, Shahram, did you email that client? I can't remember if you got, are you the guy who has that one? You can see all the emails in there so you can follow up the right way. So it's got a nice, my previous company was in the CRM world. And so it's got a nice CRM aspect to it. Who has the relationship? Where's the status of the communication? How can we get the work done? So clients are really well served by that. A couple questions. How is the setup onboarding, and do you offer phone support?
Yeah, so we actually do offer free onboarding. So, we can walk you guys through the product, help you get set up, even help import your clients and set up your templates. That's all free of charge. And then in terms of phone support, we don't have like direct phone support. How we work is we have chat support. Our response times are within 10 to 20 minutes. So we have quick responses. And if we can't resolve it on the phone, via chat really quickly, we hop on a Zoom call. So you can talk to a live person on a phone, but you always have the ability for anyone on your team to chat with a live person with really quick responses. I think there was another question. We do have a lot of individual accountants that do use it, lots of solos. I think that's about 30% of our customers. They still get a lot of value. If you have a team, you're going to get more value because that's where like you can connect with the team and collaborate, but solos get a lot of value out of it too.
Yeah, a couple great testimonials here from folks that are already using Financial Sense. So Jenny posted in, Joy posted in, great experiences with onboarding, which is super cool. So there's also a nice community here, right? Feel free to reach out to each other. I think everyone can see each other, whether on the screen or just in the chat. If anybody wants to trade email addresses, feel free to do it here, or I can send stuff around. One question, I don't know who is under the name customer service saying you need setup support. So if you've got an email you want to pop in or send it directly to Shahram or to me, we'll make sure that you get connected with that.
Fine.
Absolutely, super easy. And then Jose, you had a question, which is a good segue. What is Uncat? Love to tell you about it. So as Shahram said, the two apps connect together, and we'll talk about that even a little bit more. But I'll show you around. I'll give you a quick tour of what we're doing here at Uncat. Let me share this screen. Can you see that okay, Shahram? Is my homepage coming through?
Yep, it's perfect.
Sweet. All right, so this is uncat.com where the journey starts. Obviously, we like numbers, but we also like to have a good time. So for our motif, we chose a cat riding a pony through the desert. I was actually looking for an image that evoked herding cats because we heard from so many bookkeepers and accountants, when I need to get information back from my clients about uncategorized transactions so that I can close the books, I feel like I'm herding cats. I got to export a report from QuickBooks. I then email it to the client. I remind the client, I harangue the client, and maybe eventually they send back a completed spreadsheet, and then I've got to copy paste each of their individual answers from every row of the spreadsheet into the transactions in QuickBooks. Never mind whether they also sent a separate email with a data dump of receipts, right? And so it's a tremendous amount of work. The vast majority of solos and firms that we talked to just last month at QuickBooks Connect expressed the same level of frustration, right? Sometimes there's a client where it's like, hey, they don't have any uncategorized anymore, right? They're very low volume, or I've been working for them for 15 years. I know exactly what they spend on. I know exactly the income they receive. But for the most part, most of us have clients with quite a few uncategorized transactions. And so Uncat is a solution to not having to generate those reports, send out a lot of reminders to clients, gather the information, copy, paste it back into QuickBooks just to close the books. So this idea came from, all credit due to my co-founder, Adam Slack, who runs a firm here in Knoxville called Two Roads. And some of you that have been in the industry a long time probably recognize Adam's name or Two Roads. They were the first firm of the future that Intuit designated back in 2016. But a couple years ago, he was describing this back and forth, this herding of cats with clients, and said, we really like to solve this. We'd love to build an app that automatically notifies clients about uncategorized transactions, lets them update it in an easy to use web interface, lets us come in and categorize, and then sync it back into QuickBooks and just be done with the whole process all from one screen. So that's what we built. So if you start here, and if you like what you hear and decide to start a free trial, it's super easy. You'll just create an account with Uncat. You'll sign into QuickBooks, choose the first client file that you want to connect, and then put in that client's email address. We'll shoot them an email. And like Sharam already said, that email's got a magic link inside of it. That was a lesson learned. So when we first launched Uncat, the client had to create their own account, and clients really struggled with that. They didn't want another piece of software. They didn't want to remember another password. And so they'd frequently forget their password and then misenter their email, trying to recover their password. And we thought, that's not why we created this time-saving app, right? So we went with a magic link. So when the client receives that email, all they have to do is click on the link in the email, and it will take them straight to a client dashboard that looks like this. A little video will pop up walking them through the platform, but they'll be able to see their transactions, and similar to a spreadsheet, they'll be able to type in kind of a 5 W's for the transaction. Okay, Applebee's, it was probably a meal, right? Undoubtedly. But who was it with? What was the purpose of the meal? Why did you have that meal? And that's going to help us to properly categorize it. So a client by default will be able to enter in a description. If they have any questions, they can send you a message through Uncat and you can reply, or if you have any prompts, you can send it to them through messages. And they can also attach receipts or other documentation, depending on the type of transaction. And once they've done that, they'll click save, and a few things happen all at once. Their information will sync into QuickBooks. It will also show up on your dashboard, and we'll send you a daily digest email that says, dear Sharam, you've got 7 clients that have updated 84 transactions. You have 3 clients that updated 7 transactions. Whatever it is, you'll be able to click the link in that email, and we'll take you to your accountant dashboard that looks like this. And so you'll see for the client Acme, there are 11 total transactions. The ones color-coded in yellow with the label client updated have been updated by the client, so we can see the descriptions they've entered. Based on those descriptions, we can then choose which category the transaction should go into. We can also class the transaction if we want to. There's additional fields here where you can choose a customer, choose a location. You can choose or change a vendor if it's missing. You can see the attachments they've uploaded. If you need to or want to, you can always select a transaction and come up here and split it. You can split by category or by class. You can select multiple transactions and choose these bulk actions, like applying the same class to several transactions at a time. And you can search for transactions. So if you just want to handle all the Amazon transactions for this client right out the bat, you can do that here. It will not be surprising to all of you that we see a lot of transactions from vendors in our platform, like Amazon, Target, Walmart, Home Depot. Costco, places where you can buy pretty much anything. We also see a lot of uncategorized deposits from just cold hard cash, especially with contractors, Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, things where you really need more information from the client in order to know, where did this deposit come from? Who's it from? It's not from PayPal. That's just a conduit that got there. But was it a customer paying you? Was it a reimbursement? Is it personal finances? Should it be an owner's draw? What is it? So we see a lot of those. We had about $500 million worth of uncategorized transactions flow through the system last year, which is really phenomenal. So at any given time, a client might have, a few transactions worth a few $100s, or a couple days ago, a client was asking me a question and they said, hey, I've got $150,000 of uncategorized transactions I've got to knock out. That's super important, right? We leave those in uncategorized, and the reports that you can generate are not as useful. The budgets that you analyze are going to be out of whack. You can't really track and see where spending and income is coming from. And then, of course, you may have a question mark when it comes to an audit or at tax time. You might not be getting your full advantage. So those are some of the reasons that we built Uncat and why it's important. If you go, how does this happen? If you go into client settings, you can choose which accounts you want to sync into Uncat. You can choose how far back you want to sync. You can even sync in fields that are transactions that have been categorized, but they're missing a certain piece of information. Like if they're missing a class or missing a vendor or missing a receipt, you can bring all of them in from your books and get information back from your client. We notify the client for you by default weekly, but you can change that right here in notification settings. And then you can change what your client can do. So generally, we just want a description back from the client. But if you've got a client that knows their way around their chart of accounts, you can turn on this superpower setting. You can allow them to view, edit any number of fields. You can even allow the client to categorize their own transactions, and you'll be able to review what they did so that you can override their selections if they make a mistake. But here, now we're requiring a description and a class for this client. So if I went back to their dashboard, you'll see now they can see all these fields. Description and class are now required. So that's a quick overview of Uncat. Let me jump back and see if there's any questions at all. And the cool thing is, for any given client, right, if I'm here in client settings, you can have multiple users. You can assign them specific payment accounts, specific uncategorized accounts if you want to, like this user is only going to see transactions on their credit card. If I need information back from this user, I can click notify now and shoot them off a message. Or as Sharon was talking about, I can copy their magic link and pop it into Financial Sense, right, so that it becomes a recurring task. So every week or every month, it'll pop up, hey, don't forget you're uncategorized. And then they're one click away from jumping into Uncat straight to their dashboard where they can solve those. They can do it on their computer. They can also do it on their phone. So it's just going to pop open Safari on an iPhone or Chrome on an Android. And it makes it super easy to tap in responses on the go, upload receipts and other attachments from your camera roll or your phone files, and then shoot it straight into Uncat, and we'll sync it into QuickBooks. So we integrate with QuickBooks Online, QuickBooks Desktop, which we made a big update to a couple weeks ago. So it's a pretty slick integration, as well as Xero. All right, let me pause there and see if there's any questions, and we can do some chatting. Okay, gotta scroll back up again. Is Uncat used on data coming from QuickBooks Desktop? Yes, it certainly can be. Architecture is different, of course. So for QuickBooks Desktop, it uses what's called the QuickBooks Web Connector, which is free from Intuit. You probably already have it, and if you don't, it's a free download. Once you have that in Uncat, just click I want to add a client and choose QuickBooks Desktop, and it'll walk you through the process. We actually changed that a couple weeks ago. So it's this super simple step-by-step process where you grab an Uncat QWC file and add it to that web connector, and that allows us to sync even when that client file is closed. So even when you close the file, as long as the web connector is still online, we can sync in the background, which is pretty slick. We weren't able to do that before. What other questions are there? Shram, if you see any for Financial Sense, feel free to also jump in. Let's see. Can you link to other accounts besides uncategorized transactions? Like ask my accountant? Absolutely. You choose which accounts you want to sync for any given client. So for one client, it might be uncategorized expense, uncategorized income. For another one, you might have called it ask my accountant or suspense. And you might even want to sync in other accounts. No matter what you've named them, you can bring them in. Bring in as many as you want. So some people are just syncing in one account. I've seen firms sync in like 30 accounts because they want information from different members of that client company. So it's totally up to you, totally configurable. It's a great question. Let's see. Yes, QuickBooks Desktop and 0. And then how do you get the transactions into the interface from QuickBooks? Hopefully, when I showed you settings, that kind of answered that question. You choose the accounts you want to sync, and as soon as transactions hit those accounts in QuickBooks, we sync them in. It's worth noting, because we've seen this with some folks' workflow, is that they have a history of leaving transactions in the bank feed until they know what they are. We can't see the bank feed. It's not available through the API. It's not considered to be in the general ledger yet, right? So Intuit doesn't provide access to it. You want to move it in from the bank feed to the GL as just a general best practice, because the transaction does exist. And then from there, we can easily sync it in. If it stays in the bank feed, no one has visibility into it, right? The client can't really even see it. So that's a good best practice, and it allows us and other apps to access it. Yeah, thanks, Jose. Great questions. Thanks, Beth. Other questions, feel free to drop them in. Sharam, do you see any for Financial Sense you want to jump in on?
There was a few, but I answered them in the chat. Someone
Okay,
asked
perfect.
about the emails, and I'll just talk about this one because I think this is a common question we get. So you can integrate your emails with Financial Sense, and they were asking, does it automatically categorize or store those emails? And the answer is yes. So on each client's profile, you actually have an audit trail of every conversation between anyone on your team and you and that client. So you know who talked to the client when and about what, and you can always go back and see what was said. So that does happen automatically, which is really powerful for a lot of firms.
Yeah, that's super cool. Jose, I think that question is probably for me, because Sharam already answered on the Financial Sense side that there's onboarding and training support. It's the same for us. Thankfully, and hopefully this came through in the demo, because I can show off Uncat in like 5 to 10 minutes. It's very easy to use. So from an onboarding perspective, we've seen folks come on board and add 50 clients on a Saturday afternoon, right? Because it's just like connect, invite, and the transactions start flowing. The clients get automatically notified. And so it becomes kind of it's not a set it and forget it, because you come back obviously to categorize the transactions once you get client answers back, but it's a set it and let it run in the background. That now you don't have to think about, oh, it's the end of the month, I got to run reports, I got to email all my clients, it's going to be another herding cats exercise. It just runs. But we've got a whole library of about 100 instructional videos on kind of each individual feature. So if you want to drill down or send it to one of your firm colleagues, you can. But we embed most of those in the app itself. So really, because it's a time-saving app, we want you to be able to get into Uncat, add your clients, have it easy to use for your clients, and not spend a lot of time getting like a PhD in software, right? We want you just to be an efficiency tool. Get in, get out, close the books faster, run some quality reports for the clients. But yeah, since you asked about desktop, it's a little bit more involved. But now with that easier step-by-step flow that we added here at the beginning of the year, it should be pretty fluid. But happy to help, depending on, some people are using virtual hosts and lots of different more complex things because it's installed software. So yeah, we're here to help you get on board. Question to you.
Yeah, hey Christine. So yes, they can. So we have something called client task or client request, where you can automatically request documents every month or week or just on a one-off basis from your clients. Those will be uploaded directly into Financial Sense, which is good because not only does it automate the process and help you, get those documents faster, but again, it goes back to keeping everything organized. It's now organized. Every conversation, every document from the client is organized on the work, where the work's happening, so your team can access it when needed to get their work done. And then I'll answer on my end for the billing, and I'll let you take that for you, Brandon, after.
Yeah.
So in terms of for Financial Sense, we bill on a per team member basis. So if you're a solo, it's $39 a month. But if you have, several team members, it's going to be an additional $39 a month per team member.
Yep. And on the Uncat side, it's per client per month. So it's $5 per connected client per month. So super easy math.
Mm-hmm.
We don't get a lot of pricing inquiries because the people are like, oh, great, that's easy. We see a lot of folks just like, hey, this is going to save me so much time and my hourly rate is X. And so it's easy to absorb it. Others will simply pass along the cost to clients, and it's pretty incidental. Totally up to you on that front. Jose, follow-up question. Once the clients respond to the uncategorized transactions, right? So when they answer in their dashboard and click save, it removes from their dashboard. And the client's like, cool, I did my work. I'm out. I'm going to go back to work. And then what happens, right? Do you need to come into Uncat to see their updates? You can, and most people do, because it makes it super quick and efficient just to knock them all out on one dashboard. But they're also going to be in QuickBooks. So if you happen to be on that client file working through the uncategorized report and you just want to categorize or update classes inside QuickBooks, you can do it there. And once they're categorized, on the next sync, it's going to drop off of Uncat because it's not in an uncategorized account anymore. So it's totally up to you. It's totally your option. We see firms do it both ways, one or the other, or sometimes just both, depending on where folks are logged into at that moment in time. But good question. Yeah, all of it's automated, so you don't have to, oh, I got client responses, let me import them into QuickBooks. We do the syncing for you in the background, and all that's very fast. Vicky, thank you. I'm glad you love it. That's why we built it. Can you take a picture of a receipt and attach it on a mobile phone? Yeah, for sure. I've done it. So when you're in a transaction, you click the paperclip, right? The attachment icon, and then you can choose a photo from your camera roll, but the phone will prompt you, right? You want to choose a photo or you want to take a photo? And so you can just take one and then select it and upload it there. So that's pretty slick. Beth, how far back can you go? You can go back as far as you want. We learned this lesson early on, though. When we first built Uncat, we were using a lot of test files, and so we would sync back to the beginning of time. We learned our lesson. Once we started connecting real clients, some of you have had clients probably for 15 or 20 years, and some don't necessarily close the books officially. So we were importing so many transactions, it kind of freaked people out, right? It's like all the uncategorized for the last 20 years in a big data dump. So by default, currently, Uncat syncs back a year. But you can go to that sync start date field and change the date and go back further. A lot of folks use Uncat for cleanups, right? When a new client comes in, there's a bunch of old transactions. Yikes, we could really help you clean this up, maybe do a tax restatement, help you get on solid footing again. And so you can set the date back, whatever you want, 18 months, 2 years, and go through those transactions. But yeah, good question. For others, if you do close the books, we're only going to go back to the close date. We can still see the transactions, so technically we can bring them in and show them to you in Uncat, but it becomes an exercise in frustration because you can't edit them, right? Because once you close the books on the QuickBooks side, it locks the transactions. You can't change them there, and as a result, you can't change them in Uncat or any other app for that matter either. So we don't show them if the books are closed. We only sync back to the most recent close date, and we'll show you that date in the dashboard so that it's like, oh, I see why I'm not seeing transactions from 2020. It's because I closed the books on December 31st at the end of the fiscal year. So that's why you can always reopen them, and then we'll sync them in. But as long as they're closed, we only go back to that date. Good question. And it's fair to say, Sharon already answered this on behalf of Financial Sense. Firms that have dozens, hundreds of employees, hundreds of clients, and in the dashboard, you can easily jump to any given client just by starting to type their name, and it'll jump to that client. We also serve solos and small firms that have a handful of clients, in which case it's easy just to scroll down on the Uncat dashboard and you can see all of your clients listed. You probably saw that briefly in the demo. And that's convenient because historically, we had like 30 tabs open at any given time with all the clients, trying to close them all at the end of the same month. And here it's nice to see all of them on one screen. So you can kind of work through all the uncategorized across all your clients all at one time. Free trial, Sharon?
We do. We offer a free 14-day trial. Sometimes if you guys need some more time, we understand. We'll extend it for you if you let us know. But we try to give you plenty of time to test out the system. No credit card or anything needed.
Yep, same for Uncat. Free 2-week trial. No credit card needed. Jump in, try it out. I mean, the proof of the pudding is always in eating, I like to say. So, you got to get in, test it out, make sure your clients like it. That's the key. I mean, that's what we found, right? When a client writes back and says, I like this better, this was easier than a spreadsheet, this was faster, et cetera, then undoubtedly you're going to be like, oh, a happy client, I'm happy, and you'll stick with the app. Because it's going to save you time for sure. And as long as the client likes it, which most of them do because it simplifies. I'll mention also, the magic link is a big deal. The other thing that really drives client engagement is if you put in their phone number, we'll send them a text message notification as well as an email. And for some, that might be like, oh, that's too much. Like, they'll just get an email. It's awesome. If the client will respond to the email, it's super. But some clients really aren't checking emails these days, right? It could be generational. It could be the type of business they're in. They're out in the field. If they get a text message, we're all conditioned to read text messages and action them. And we're not all conditioned to do that anymore for email. So we find text messages help a lot with client engagement and compliance. The other thing that we added actually relatively recently, which has been a good just small psychological tweak in the app, is that we notify you about the number of transactions a client has or that a client has updated. That wasn't particularly motivational for clients, though, for them to know they have 7 or 57 transactions. What's more motivational is the total value of those transactions. So when they get a message saying, hey, you got $39,000 in transactions that need your attention, the client will click through on that because they'll be like, that sounds like a lot of money, because it is. And then they'll provide responses. So that's been a nice tweak that we added right at the end of 2022. Small thing, but it's made a difference.
Okay.
Any other questions that Shram and I can answer about Financial Sense or Uncat? For FC, is a non-recurring task option coming?
It's in the works. So basically what she's asking is, we have recurring projects and non-recurring projects. So you can create like a tax return, right? Or an ad hoc work, but inside the recurring work, sometimes people don't want all those steps to recur. It's a one-off for that month or that quarter. That's something we're working on.
Sweet. Cheers.
I'll be sure to let you know, Jenny.
Good stuff.
It depends on the size of your firm, Jose. So, we've seen some firms get set up in just a day or two. It really comes down to that. We can help you with that. If you have like your client list, right? If you already have your processes documented, it's going to be a lot easier, right? But if you don't, it's going to take a little bit more time because you got to document your processes, right? We have some templates that you have, common accounting and bookkeeping templates. Our process is already documented, which helps you with that, and you can customize it to fit what you want it to say. But it's pretty quick. You can, I don't know if you're going to be impacted by tax season that's coming up, but you could definitely get it set up before then. It should only take you a few days.
I think that's a great question too, because I remember last year, sort of a pro forma response during tax season is, right, everyone's super busy. Of course we are. It's tax season. So it's like, I'll look at this after. Semicolon, it's really a great time to implement a Financial Sense. It's a great time to implement Uncat because we're designed to save you time during the busiest of times. And so it's one of those stitch in time saves 9, right? If you can take a moment to turn on Uncat, for example, and get information back about uncategorized faster during tax season, it'll probably get you through tax season faster with some more sanity than thinking like, I'm too busy to do this. Mm-hmm. I'll look at it after April 15th. Obviously I'm biased because we make the software, but from experience, I will say, if you can find a good app, whatever it is, right? Slack or Trello or something, then that boost in productivity is really long lasting. And it's nice to spend a few minutes doing the setup and you capture back hours in return. And it's a good season right now to test it out. You're going to be asking clients for a lot of stuff that you have already, and you will be over the next few months. So why not put it in a system that's trackable, right? So that you can see what's going on, you get data back about transactions when you have questions about them, and it's all captured and backed up and synced into QuickBooks. Pretty slick. Cool. Well, if there's any other questions, type them in now. Otherwise, thank you all for coming. Your time is obviously very valuable. It is a busy season, so we really appreciate you coming. Hopefully you've gotten value out of the webinar. If you need any additional information, both Shram and I will follow up with an email afterward. Feel free to write back to us. And yeah, nice testimonial there. Mary at Financial Sense, very helpful. Boom.
I'll let her know.
Mary's getting a very positive call out on the webinar. I like it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. This was a great webinar. It's nice to meet a lot of you. And Brandon, it's always great doing these with you.
Yeah, for sure. We'll do it again. They're popular.
Yeah.
We have a good time. So thanks, everybody. Talk to y'all soon. Cheers.